So, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, according to the time are you watching me. My name is Veronica, and during the method class, I studied the Douglas Brown principles. But what of does we need on our Chilean classroom? Or if there anything that was left of that is needed in the Chilean context? In my opinion, the principles 7, 8, and 9 are the principles that we need in the Chilean classroom. First, the principle 7, that is self-confidence, is very necessary because we have to have self-confidence for learn a new language. In the process, we have to be positive and think that we can do it. For example, Chilean students think that they cannot learn English because it's very difficult. The normal thinking are that the foreign language is like kind of impossible language. Also, as a teacher, we have to be involved emotionally, expressing in a verbal and non-verbal way that affirm the student that he or she can do it. For example, showing a smile when the student is making a presentation that will increase his or her self-confidence. Furthermore, the techniques are an important point that as teacher we have to be very careful, mainly in Chile, because if we decided to begin with the more difficult concepts or context, obviously our student will be frustrated and it will be more difficult that they believe in their abilities. So we have to begin for the easier to the more difficult. That's say the principle. And I believe in that for our Chilean reality. For instance, if we want that a student write an essay, we have to begin for teaching the grammar structure and giving the text that they make reflections. So because the reflections are more personal, so they need to begin or start step by step. During the learning process, we suffer ego vulnerability, and for that reason I consider that the principle 8 is very important, that is called risk-taking, when the student have to go out of the comfort zone, and as teacher we have to help them to make mistake with new techniques. In this principle, we have the opportunity to innovate as teacher, and I think that is very important for us as Chilean teacher, because the traditional education is very structured and they don't believe in errors, and students have to make mistake for break that ego vulnerability and learn about English or the target language. The errors are making the self-confidence as the previous principle, because it's connecting for the reason that they are winning to the challenge that we are applying in the classroom. For example, if a student in a course have difficult for oral expression, we need to create talking group when they go out to that phrase. I observed that in Chile it's very normal that as a student, for example in my case in the high school, I was terrified to make a presentation in front of my class or speak just with my partner in English, because we never had the opportunity to take the risk to make something different. Finally, the principal night is language culture connection. When you learn a language, you also learn how to fit in that language. You learn the belief that people have in that native language. For students live the acculturization is very important for have the empathy that no one is better than the other culture, and for appreciate our culture, our Chilean culture. For example, when something is due in the United States, a student, or in general in Chile, we think that it's better than the things that we do in Chile. And we don't know before the acculturization that when we are greeting a person in the United States or American, we don't have to kiss in the face that person. We are ignorant in that. And for our class in Chile, it's important to teach that to the student. When, for example, they will be connected with a person of other country, because we are living in a global the globalization, so that open more opportunity for the future. In addition, this permits to the teacher to create activities across the culture that the language they are teaching. In our case, with English, we can teach the custom that they have, and at the same time the student will be thinking about that in that language. So this permits more fluency in the class and more fluency with the connection of the language. Furthermore, we will be making a meaningful class when the language have a purpose, and I consider that is create a more effective teaching of English, because for the student have more sense that we teach the culture. As a conclusion, students need to believe in themselves, and teachers support them for belief in themselves. With that, we need a positive attitude in a verbal and non-verbal way. Break the ego will be an important part, and the innovation will be the friend of that process. Furthermore, in language acquisition, we need to be friends of the vulnerability of the ego, because it's part of the process, and make mistake is no wrong, it's no mean that you will never learn a language. In particular, create the culture acquisition for me is one of the more important parts, because this permits to be effectively in the teaching and make a teaching with more sense, and not just to teach words without the context. And for me, it's important the context when we are teaching English.